attempt for them not to be qualified. On that basis, they will still be assessed by their auditors as any other company would be. The issue is just that these other administrative non-material transactions get, to the extent that they are having challenges, that gets reported in their annual report. And let me add, we will engage with the Auditor General to make sure that that also gets audited by their auditors, but separately from their financial statements, so that if they, so there's less likelihood that they get qualified for those reasons, because once they get qualified, it becomes, in a sense, technically it follows that they then have to need a waiver from many of the lenders whose covenants they've transgressed, and that does, and some may or may not extend their lending conditions, which then requires them to come to the fiscus. So that's the dilemma we have, that when Eskom fails, not only do they fail the country in terms of load shedding, but their failure then comes to sit on the treasury, and we've got to kind of bail them out or provide more guarantees. So that the taxpayer, in a sense, gets hit in a double blow. We're trying to prevent the second blow, in a manner of speaking. I'm only applied for it now, and if I may be mistaken, but I think it may even have come whilst Mr. Director was at Eskom. And let me make it clear, all Mr. Director's allegations must be properly investigated, and we must, ensure that every effort is put to uncover all the corruption that's taking place at Eskom, and that is the Treasury position and always has been. And I understand that the public wants it to be so, and in fact, I'm happy the public wants it to be so. They are right to want it to be so. The issue, as I said, is a technical issue around their borrowing, and this is the point at which they've applied. Last year, it was Transnet that had applied for similar reasons and were granted this exemption. In fact, their exemption was gazetted 31st of March 2022, and Eskom was done exactly a year later. I understand too that because it coincides with all the Mr. Director's statements on the corruption that appears to be entrenched at Eskom, and I think it's our hope that the new board is actually working to end such corruption, doing all in their powers to do so. We believe that we should be helping the new leadership at Eskom to uncover such corruption and yet to continue to operate so that they can provide electricity to us. So we won't automatically grant them such an exemption. They've got to apply, and they've got to convince us that there's a need for such exemption. And I think in the case of Eskom being our biggest state-owned entity, and given the critical role they play in providing electricity, and given their state of finances, we've had to intervene in this way to try and keep their borrowing costs as low as possible. I mean, that's the objective. It's a question of sustainability. And yes, it is a judgment call that we've made. But Sakina, let me say, we are mindful of all the comments coming. And in fact, we want to actively engage with all the organizations that have issued strong statements to try and allay their concerns. And frankly, look at other measures. Maybe there are other additional measures we can put in place to try and ensure that we don't compromise on the reporting standards, and that we don't make it as difficult as possible for any corrupt player to commit such acts that we don't want them to commit. We have not engaged with all these organizations that have come out to make their statements, and many of them made their statements just on the basis of the Gazette. They hadn't looked at our statement. But, we are willing to engage with them to hear them out. They may have a point that we haven't perhaps seen. And as I said, we're open to tightening the approach that we've adopted But the core problem doesn't go away about Eskom and the impact of having qualified audits. We need to get Eskom not to have their financial statements qualified. And we're not doing so, let me add, we're not doing so by changing the standards. They still have to meet the IFRS standards. They still have to meet JSE requirements. The only issue we're looking at are some of these administrative measures which other companies don't face to make it less likely that they get qualified due to those reasons. And, we're happy to engage. In fact, I will be contacting many of these organizations with a view to meeting them. Firstly, explaining our perspective, but hearing them out, hearing their concerns, and as I said, to take on board any points that we haven't factored in, and to see how we can perhaps tighten the reporting regime to make it as hard as possible for corruption. I mean, that is the objective that we have at all stages.
Yeah, well, let's stay with that discussion. The business community has reacted with outrage to the decision to exempt Eskom from declaring irregular and fruitless expenditure in its annual financial statements. The Black Business Council says they will urgently be requesting a meeting with the finance minister to discuss this move. To get reaction of the Black Business Council, we are joined by the CEO, Mr. Kganki Matabane. Mr. Matabane, good morning to you. Welcome to the agenda once again.
Good morning, Naredi, and the viewers.
Let's start with your initial reaction. You hear the news. What's the first thought that comes from you?
Firstly, we actually thought it was an April Fool's joke. And we realized it was very serious, and we realized that no, this cannot be right. And the more, unfortunately, the more they are trying to explain it, I think the more they are getting into more trouble, because when you listen to the National Treasury, for example, it sounds like, for example, you are a Minister of Education, your child fails grade 12, and then what you do, instead of getting your child to improve their marks, you then lower the pass rate so that your child can pass. So that's basically what we're hearing. We're hearing that all this is done to allow Eskom to achieve a clean audit. But what stops Eskom from achieving a clean audit under normal circumstances like all the other SOCs are doing? So you cannot lower the standards to try and accommodate your child who's doing bad. What you need to do, you need to try and find all the other measures to encourage your child to do what your child is supposed to do. So Eskom is supposed to, it's got all the capacity, it's got all the information, it's got everything else that they need to achieve clean audit. So Eskom must focus on achieving clean audit instead of trying to find ways and abusing legislation to try and accommodate them.
Yeah, I'm looking at a statement that you sent out yesterday. It says from the BBC, the Black Business Council, that the BBC views this as an irrational decision that desperately seeks to shield the incompetent former CEO of Eskom, Mr. Andre de Ruyter, from his lack of compliance with the PFMA. Explain that.
Yes, if you look at the annual report of Eskom for the past 3 years when de Ruyter was there, the regular expenditure and wasteful expenditure went extremely high because the Ruyter came there with a view that everyone is corrupt, and he never followed any process. So he never liked the PFMA. He decided he's going to appoint his friends, both as service providers and as employees, without following processes. So when you look at the years that have been covered, one of the years that has been covered is 2022-2023, which is the year when the Ruyter was there. So when you read it, you're thinking, but this exemption is basically trying to say, let's not hold the Ruyter accountable. Let's let him go without any blemishes so that he can get a new job wherever he's going, without accounting for what he has done. It's important that whoever was the CEO, whoever is the executive, they need to be held accountable for the non-compliance with the PFMA. For us, it's very simple. If you don't like the PFMA, instead of abusing it and coming with tactics of exempting yourself. You must change the law. The minister serves in cabinet. Why can't he then ask his colleagues in cabinet and in parliament to say, we don't like this law the way it is, let's change it, instead of trying to find ways of working around the law.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. If you don't like something, you've got the powers to change it, and let's change it so that we can comply with whatever law is there.
Yeah, I need to wrap this up because we're out of time, but I need to squeeze this one in. Last year, we saw 2022, the reportings really that 2022 was the worst year of load shedding that South Africa ever had. Let's talk about what this move does to the confidence that small businesses that are really taking a beating from load shedding, the confidence that they have in Eskom to be able to resolve its issues. And are you still pursuing that meeting with the finance minister?
Yes, I was still pursuing the meeting with the finance minister and the deputy president so that we can raise this issue very, very sharply. Because what we think what's going to happen, government is going to be taken to court, and then government is going to lose this case, and it's going to embarrass government. So it's better that they need to actually relook at this, retract it, and find another way of dealing with the issues of Eskom not being able to achieve clean audit. This is not the right way.
All right, let's leave it there. Mr. Kganki Matabane, CEO there of the Black Business Council, speaking to us via Zoom. Thank you so much for your time.